Hey, welcome to Model Building Start to Finish. This is John, and I'm sitting here with Dan. We're working on this Atlas O-scale feed store. What are we going to do this time?
I have these little light castings from Scale City Designs. This is part number 48-23, and these come several to a package. And I want to put these basically one over the door. I want to put a couple over the loading dock, and then I want to put one over the big door on the other side of the building.
Okay.
So on this door and the door on the other side, I need to drill a little hole somewhere up here so that I can run a wire and some kind of support, because I actually want to make these light up with LEDs.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah. Now these, since there's already supports up here, I think I might try to just hang the lights from those.
Okay.
Because that seems like a logical thing to do.
Uh-huh.
So I was thinking maybe three, one here, and one here.
Yeah, that would probably look good. Plus one over the door.
Well, this center one is more or less over the door, so I think...
I mean the door on the right side.
Oh, right, on the other side of the... Yeah.
Yeah.
So a total of maybe 5 lights on the outside of the building. So there are 5 support brackets that hold up the roof above the loading dock, and these are the 3 that I've chosen for the center. And I kind of clamped them all together like this and then drilled holes through each one roughly in the middle of this part.
For the lights?
For the lights, right. And the reason I clamped them together is so that I could get the holes more or less in the same place in each one.
Yeah.
So that the lights will,
It's more uniform that way.
Right. So that they'll more or less be in a line. So in 2 of the supports, I drilled a pair of additional holes up at the top, and these are just going to be to try to keep the wiring neat.
Oh, right, because you're going to have to run it along there, huh?
Right. So what I want to do is run the wiring way up on the underside of the roof where it won't be seen.
Right.
So those 2 supports with the holes are here and here, with the extra holes, I should say. All 3 with the hole in the bottom are the middle 3. And what I envision happening is the lights will hang down below that little hole in the bottom.
Right.
And then the wires will come up here. I'll route them through these holes to this other hole that I drilled in the side of the building right here. This light can come directly up to that hole. That's why I didn't put extra holes in here. I didn't think they were necessary.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
And then the same thing with this. The wire will come up from the light, go through these holes to keep it up at the top, and then go through up here. And that should hopefully keep the wiring more or less invisible.
Yeah. Seems like a sound plan anyway.
Yeah. So on the other side of the building, I drilled one single hole centered above the door, and the light support and wires will just come out through that and down to the light.
So this is one of those holes over the doors you were talking about?
Right. So there's one of these in the back side of the building here, and then one over the person-sized door that's on the other side that leads out to the loading dock.
Right. And I thought I noticed that the hole over the sliding door on the other side of the building was a lot bigger. Is that to accommodate all the wires?
Right. But and also remember that hole's way up underneath the roof and you won't see it.
Right. No, I'm not worried about that. I was just wondering why it was so much bigger.
Yeah, because there's going to be more wires over there.
Yeah. Well, it's 3 times more wires, right? 'Cause you have 3 lights.
Right. So I thought it might be a little more realistic if I was able to have the lights on in part of the building and not the other part, or vice versa.
Yes.
So I cut this baffle to fit between the 2 rooms of the building. There's this big room over here and then this smaller room on the side. And on the side that faces the smaller room, I painted it the same gray that I painted the foundation.
Okay.
And then on the other side, I painted it black.
Oh, to keep the light leak?
Yeah. So this should hopefully prevent any light from bleeding from one side to the other. So now I just need to glue it in there between the 2 halves of the building. So this is a piece of 040 styrene, by the way, that I cut. But you could really use anything, even a piece of cardboard or something. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to glue it with some CA. I also drilled a small hole at the top so I can run wires through it.
I've been kind of curious about that, and I'm sure you must have a plan for this, that don't buildings usually have just one place where they connect up to the layout where you'd put all that, sort of electricity and DCC, if it's DCC, stuff?
Well, there's a variety of ways you can do that.
How are you going to do this one? Or had you thought that far yet?
Well, I was kind of thinking along the lines of maybe using a stationary DCC decoder or something like that.
Oh, so you'd have buttons next to it or on it or something like that?
Or, well, yeah, something. For now, I'm just going to wire it with separate circuits, and we'll figure that part out later. So this building didn't really have any provision for hanging lights anywhere. So what I've done is to glue strips of styrene on either side so that I'll have something to mount a little piece of plastic on or something that will hold the LEDs that I'm going to install.
Yeah.
This happens to be 080 by 156 strip styrene, but you could really use any size. It's not that critical. Just made sure they were at the same height on both sides of the building. I've cut a couple of pieces of 060 styrene to sit across those strips that I put in there.
Yep.
So it makes kind of a ceiling.
Yep.
And this will accomplish a couple of things. One, I can drill some holes to mount some LEDs, and that'll hold them. The other thing is it should prevent any light from coming up through the roof, potentially, because there is a bit of a gap at the ridge of the roof.
Yeah.
And I don't want light shining out there. I think that would look not so good. So this should hopefully prevent that.
When's the last time you saw a real building do that?
Never.
Right.
Yeah. Unless it was on fire or something, but
Yeah, we don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
So this is going to be removable, or because you got to be able to access that to put your glass in the window still, right?
For now, I'll leave it removable. I may glue it later.
Oh, okay.
So in this part of the building, there's windows here, and not really anything in the middle. So I think it probably makes the most sense to put one LED about here and another one about here.
Okay.
Kind of where the windows are. And then on this side, I'll just put one in the center.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the other side's small enough, it shouldn't matter where it is.
Right. So what I did was drilled pairs of holes in the places where I want the LEDs, and I also painted the top part of the ceiling that I made black, and I painted the underside that same gray, so it'll reflect light down a little bit.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
And then the LEDs will fit through these little holes.
Yep.
Just like that. And then what I can do up here is bend the leads.
That'll hold them in place, huh?
Right.
Now you just need your resistors and your wires, right?
Right. All right. So I've used some 1.5 k ohm resistors on these LEDs. And even though this is a building, I kind of wired it as if it was a piece of rolling stock or locomotive.
You mean the colors?
Yeah. So I'm using blue on the positive lead, and that is common between these two. And then I put one resistor on each LED, and then I wired this to a color. And then on the other little room,
the office,
the office, yeah, I wired the same way but blue, and I used purple because I envision these being two separate circuits.
Uh-huh.
So since we're not quite sure how this is all going to be tied into wherever this building ends up yet, I think it's probably best to just leave the wiring separate. But I did gang these two lights together because I don't see any reason that they would need to be separate.
Is your intention then to gang the 3 or whatever lights, the exterior lights, on a different color? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have independent control of those two. So before I install too much else, it's probably a good time to put the window glazing in.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I was afraid of, if you do too much, they'll become inaccessible, or it'll be harder because you'll have to do it from the bottom. And as I recall, the hole in the bottom in the base doesn't make it as accessible as having the roof off.
Right, it isn't. So I'm using some canopy glue because that won't frost the glass. Sometimes if you use CA or even the liquid styrene cement, it can, if it gets on the surface of the glass, it can mar it.
I think that CA even puts crappy looking effects on regular plastic too, doesn't it?
It can, yeah. Another thing too is if you do get any excess canopy glue on the glazing, a quick application of some water with a microbrush or a little paper towel will get rid of it.
Oh, right, because it's just like almost glue, isn't it?
Kind of, yeah. So what I have here are some Builders in Scale Part 705 Venetian blinds. And these are basically just pieces of paper that you cut out. And what they say to do is to, once you've cut it out, is to pull one side toward you and the other side away from you to kind of fold them a little bit without breaking them, hopefully.
Yeah, what's it made out of? Paper?
It's just paper, yeah.
Oh boy, be careful.
This is supposed to put a little bit of a bend in them, and then you can kind of bring it back to center. And yeah, they do have kind of a little bit of a twist to them that way.
Yeah, I can see it on camera too.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but if it looks like they're a little screwed up, that's not necessarily bad because real blinds do that.
I've seen plenty of blinds that aren't perfect.
Yeah. So this is what it looks like with the blind installed, and all I did was put a little strip of canopy glue on either side of the window in the back and just stick the paper to that. So this is what it looks like from the inside.
Yeah, that's exactly what I expected to see. I was expecting those two strips, the one on either side, to be where you would have glued it.
Right. So that Venetian blind set had enough to do 6 windows.
Oh.
And there were 5 windows in the office area, and then I had one left over, and I was going to put it away, and then I thought, well, why not use it? So I cut it in half and used it to make the blinds partially down in both of these windows on the loading dock side.
Yeah, it looks good. It's good for variety, too.
Yeah, it also helps keep people from seeing all the way through the building as much.
Yeah.
If you looked,
Yep, or if they tried to look up to see what the lights were.
Right.
Inside the windows.
Right. I think this is a good place to stop, and we'll finish lighting this building in the next episode.
Sounds great. I'll see you then.
Bye.